Are these on? Good evening, everyone. My name is Ronald Presner. I'm chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the town of Mount Pleasant. And we got a big crowd here tonight. Welcome to this evening's meeting. Before we start, let me first introduce the members of our board. To my far right is Adrian Novak. To my immediate right is Mr. Nicholas DeChico. To my left over here is Kathy Niclario. She's Secretary of Zoning and Planning. To her left is Mr. Herb Dorr, and on the far left is Mr. George Lapazos. We have one continuing application for this evening, and then we have several new applications. For those who've never come before us before, let me explain how we run the meeting. When your application is called, you'll come forward. I will then swear you in, and for the public record, I will read the application for for why you're here tonight for the zoning board. Once that's done, I will then ask you some questions. You will have an opportunity to discuss your application, and from there, it'll be opened up to the other members of the board. When it's complete, I will ask if anyone here is for or against an application, and when that's finished, as far as we're concerned, we'll either approve at that moment your application, deny, or hold it over for another meeting if there's some controversy for it. So, with that being said, let me start with a continuing application, which is 2430, Mr. Greg Vogel. Why don't you take the mic and put it over there? Okay. The whole thing. That'd be easier. Okay. Yeah, bring it over. Turn you into the moving business. You may have to lower it. Okay.
How about this?
That's even better. Raise your right hand, please. Yes. Testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God.
I do.
And you are?
My name is Joel Greenberg from Architectural Visions. I'm the architect for the project.
And where's your office?
My office is 2 Musket Road North, Mahopac, New York.
Okay. This is an application regarding Greg Vogel, owner of the premises located at 301 Columbus Avenue,
Yes.
Valhalla, New York. And its appeal is from the decision of the building inspector of the town of Mount Pleasant, and it's designated on the tax assessment maps as 117.7, Block 119. And the application is a proposed 6-foot-high fence on a legal standard parcel of 2.45 acres, correct?
Correct.
In the R20 zone, and you're here for a variance because the maximum fence height is 4 feet, you're looking for 6 feet, and you want a 2-foot variance.
Correct.
Okay. When you were here the last time, this building, the building behind this proposed fence, is not part of this agenda anymore, correct?
Correct. That has been withdrawn. And I have to actually thank the board because we listened to you and were able to do something very nice without the additional variance or the use variance. So thank you very much.
So what you're basically doing is a 6-foot fence with a 5-foot fence with a 1-foot lattice,
Correct.
correct?
Yes. As you can see, we showed this at the last meeting. This is what the fence would look like. And as you can see, the red area around here, this is the area around the house. That will be the fence location.
Okay. I have no questions. Ms. Novak?
No questions.
Mr. DeChico?
So can you submit in due order a new site plan without the addition to the structure, but just with the fence?
Yes, Kathy mentioned that to me, and I will get that to you. Just tell me how many copies, and I'll get that to you. Just 2? Okay. We'll have no problem with that. Thank you.
No further questions.
Okay. Mr. Dorr?
The only question I have is more of a clarification. I mean, you put in a fence, the structure has a garage. So,
Oh, no, that garage is not going to be around anymore.
all right, so this fence is going, because your plans that you submitted has 10 parking places
Correct.
in front of that house.
Yes.
So this garage is going straight across.
No, the garage is going to be
It's
eliminated.
going right in front of the garage.
The garages will be eliminated.
Okay, that's all I
If you recall, one of the things that we were concerned about is to get to the second floor, there was an outside stair, which is very dangerous, and we rearranged it so that the second floor, they will go through the garage and a staircase up to the second floor.
Okay. Mr. Lapazos?
I have nothing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. In the past, we've always looked favorably on this type of a fence. And so I'm going to ask the board at this time, do I have a motion on this particular application?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve application Z24-30 based upon the plan submitted as it relates to the fence only, and with the condition that the applicant submit an updated site plan removing any prior proposed additions to the house and only showing the proposed fence as on record.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Dorr. Ms. Novak?
Approve.
Mr. Lapazos?
Aye.
Aye. Chairman votes aye, so it's carried 5-0. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And I'll try to go a little taller next time.
We'll do our best. If you would like, we can always ask you to come back.
Thank you. Very good. Again, have a good evening.
All right.
Thank you very much.
The next new application for this evening is Scott Core. Okay. All right. All right, raise your right hand, please. Testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do,
Okay, and you are Scott Core,
yes.
and where do you live?
338 Jackson Avenue.
Where?
I live at 338 Jackson Avenue in Hawthorne, sorry.
In Hawthorne, okay. So this application is an appeal of the determination made by the town's building inspector that the proposed use of the landscaping supply facility with equipment storage and an office on a vacant parcel on Bradhurst Avenue is permitted based upon Town Code 218 and schedule regulations attached, and we've got 15 for the CNR zoning district. The vacant parcel is located on Bradhurst Avenue. It's a legal standard lot of 24,000 square feet approximately in the CNR zoning district and is identified on the Town of Mount Pleasant tax map as 112.9 Block 1 Lot 3. Correct?
Correct?
Okay. Tell me what's going on.
All right, so I would just like to make a brief statement, and I'm going to turn the floor over to John to elaborate on our argument and appeal on the buildings inspector interpretation of the zone if acceptable.
Excuse me, before we start, those that are here for this application, would you raise your hand? Just like I thought. Thank you very much.
All right, so
Go
I'm
ahead.
just, I'm sorry. I'm just going to make an opening statement, and then I'm going to turn the floor over to John. So, first, the neighborhood appreciates the scrutiny we've given this project in the past and the opportunity to present our case against the use in the CNR retail zone. I'm just going to make a few points. One, we have previously shared a petition of opposition that includes over 40 homes directly affected with over 100 wet signatures hand-signed. We turned it in the last. I have copies here if you guys would like a copy. The community remains vigilant that this use proposes a clear and present danger to the neighborhood with their trucks pulling onto a blind curve, right, on a hill onto 100. Someone is going to be seriously hurt or even worse. We are opposed to any lot line changes that would expand the CNR zoning into the R10 residential zoning portion of the lot. Now, an increase in the CNR zone would cause an increase in operations, a bigger burden to the residents of Hawthorne, and we feel that it's encroachment. Also, there's not enough parking in the operation, causing spillover into the residential area, as staff will be forced to park in the surrounding neighborhood, which is also encroachment. So, in short, the proposed use unfairly impacts the neighborhood's quality of life and our home values. So now I'd like to offer the floor to John to speak to the actual code.
Fine.
Thank you.
Raise your right hand, please. Testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity. Just to start off, I wanted to make a couple of personal points. Number one, I'm an architect, so generally speaking, I'm pro-development. But development has to be according to the permitted uses as per the town code. And secondly, as a little bit of a spillover from the planning board meeting last week, I just wanted to state, I'll speak for myself, I'm sure I might speak for others. We don't have anything personal against the applicant. They're upstanding citizens, they're members of the community. Their children, just like our children, go through the school systems, play in sports, activities, go to religious classes and all that. So we all understand that. Again, nothing, absolutely nothing personal. The issue that we're raising is that in reading what's a permitted use in the CNR district, which is a neighborhood retail in support of the surrounding residential district, we just don't see the warehouse use. The applicant, last time they were here, they presented a building that was to be used for the applicant's lawn care business. At that time, they were requesting some variances which were not granted, so they went back and they revised their plans and they included the office space in a mezzanine in the building. Aside from that, the location of the building, the truck movements primarily stay the same. There was a little bit of an interim in the planning board process. They made one additional change, which was the applicant decided not to use the premises for their own lawn care business. They have since decided that they're going to build it essentially the way it's been designed. There's no change in the design of the building or anything else on the site in terms of its layout, but they decided to rent it out to a future contracting business. The applicant referenced a possible electrical contractor, a possible sheetrock contractor. It doesn't preclude a future landscape company from coming in either. It's being rented out. So the use is clearly a warehouse use. Goods have to be delivered to the warehouse. Whatever material it is has to be stored. Some equipment may need to be stored. And then whatever that business is, on a daily basis, they'll take what they need, go out to their respective job sites, do the work, come back at the end of the day, whatever the operation is. By that use, it's clear that it's a warehouse use. Goods are being stored. Goods, equipment, trucks are coming in to drop off material, and then their own vehicles will depart with material to go out to respective job sites. That's, in my mind, squarely, simply a warehouse use, which I just don't see it in a CNR zone. CNR has their own permitted uses. I don't see a warehouse use. It also lists R10 uses can also be applied. When you look at the R10, it then refers you to an R40 district. So the uses are either in one of three categories. They're either going to be permitted uses, or accessory uses, or special uses. And in any of those categories, this use that's being proposed is not listed. Even if there's a little bit of interpretation, a little leeway, there's nothing here that closely resembles a warehouse use. And the concern here is, where is that interpretation? In which category does it reside? Because if it ends up residing in the first use, the permitted use, then that sets a precedent that this type of use can be in any R10 district, in any R40 district, in the middle of a block, as long as it complied with, other setbacks and building coverage, so on and so forth. So our main appeal here is the use itself being applied in a CNR district.
I have a letter from the building inspector, Mr. Sal Pinelli. I want to read it to you. I don't know if
Yes.
you read it for the audience. The town reviewed the zoning application Z 24-31, which is an appeal to determine if this type of business is allowed in the CNR zoning district, reviewing Chapter 18, Attachment 15, Non-Resident District 3. The parcel is a vacant lot identified in the town of Mount Pleasant tax map as SBL 112.9-1-3, located on Bradhurst Avenue, Mount Pleasant, New York, in the CNR zoning district. It says, I have determined that an office with storage is a permitted use under the CNR district per town code. And he's mentioned it below are some examples of the current existing businesses that enter and exit with a commercial vehicle on a state road in the CNR district. And he mentions four of them. There's Pinto Lawn Repair on Franklin Avenue, Rado Plumbing on Commerce Street, Ortiz Welding on Commerce Street, and Burke Heat on Commerce Street. You go back, I don't know if you were at the previous ZBA meeting when this application was brought before us.
I was.
Okay. Then you know how I felt about this particular application. And the board, in certain ways, felt the same. The main concern that we have tonight, and that's why it was denied, the main concern that we have to deal with is it permitted in a CNR zone? And now it was being changed over. It could be anything. It could be a dance hall, as far as I know, once this building is put up. It could be I don't know, a deli, but in a steel building. We don't know what's going to go in there. So I don't know what's going on with the planning board and the jurisdiction as far as the layout and construction and so on and so forth. It's between the planning board and the building department. Our main concern is trying to find, a lot of times, I'm sort of like the Godfather. You come to me, we try to, when the building inspector says no, we try to find an area where we can help you get your application done. May not be all of it, but you'll get some of it done. This particular project is an entirely different animal. As I explained in the previous minutes, and the minutes are available to the public, that there are too many questions. And now there are more questions tonight, because I'm under the impression that when I came here, this was going to be a lawn care service going in. Now, it's going to be a building which we don't know what's going to be in there. And I don't know what the heck to tell you. And I'm being honest. I don't know what to tell you. And that's a planning board issue. It's not a zoning board issue. And the zoning board has to do its due diligence. So you're an architect. You come before us many times, and I appreciate your knowledge and your understanding of different projects that you've presented to us. As far as this project is concerned, my feelings stay the same, but now we got a new kink in it where it's going to be an unknown application. And as far as the letter that Mr. Pinelli wrote, yes, the CNR zoning, the letter is correct. But now, what you've just said, we don't know.
Right. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I understand that an office use is permitted with storage space, but this is not an example of that. This is a warehouse use that has incidental office space in support of the warehouse operation. It would just be like this project by zoning belongs in an OB5 district where it's office business and they allow warehouses. Skyline Drive, all the Robert Martin projects that are there are examples of this type of facility, perhaps a different scale. And in conjunction with that, there's another portion of the zoning code. It's 218-57. It's titled Truck Terminal Transfer and Storage Points.
Not allowed in town.
I'm sorry?
It's not allowed in town. We had several years ago, we had FedEx wanting to come in
Mm-hmm.
and put a facility here on 9A.
Correct, right.
And my question to them is, which FedEx is coming in?
Mhm.
FedEx package or FedEx freight?
Right.
They wanted to put in FedEx freight. So they wound up going down to Elmsford.
Well, the wisdom of this particular portion of the code is that the site has to be a minimum of 2 acres to accommodate the type of operations that occur there, along with all the other stipulations that are in there. And again, it's basically a warehouse storage space that has incidental office. The office is not the primary function with incidental storage. So I'm not saying that Mr. Pinelli, Commissioner, Building Inspector Pinelli's letter is incorrect. I'm just saying that that use is not this use. That's what I'd like to simply state. And what would be a reasonable use there? Because at the planning board meeting, we were constantly asked, well, what would you want there? What would you want there? Didn't you know that you're buying a house up against a CNR district? And again, I'm not an anti-development person. However, that question wasn't asked to me. But if I had to answer it, and that's why I brought these pictures here, on Broadway, on the other side of the Mobile station, all these are basically office buildings. One's a lawyer's office, one's a doctor's office. Then you have that new office building. And then, this picture here is taken from Brighton, going north on Bradhurst. Here's the subject, dangerous curve. But right over here in the foreground is a dental office building. So professional office buildings of that scale, that's perfectly suitable for this particular site because it keeps vehicles in scale. It's a car. It's not trucks coming in and out of that turn there.
One of the main concerns, and I'll hand it over to the other members of the board, was site distance.
Mhm.
And New York State, as I explained that night at the meeting, I didn't know if they had Ray Charles or Stevie Wonder look at the site. But it's in a bad spot. It was originally for a house. But if it was over at the far end, more towards 9A, you'd have more than enough distance to see oncoming cars, because nobody's going around that turn is doing under 40 miles an hour.
Mhm.
Guaranteed, especially off of 9A. They're doing 45, 50. And that's approximately 50 feet a second. So for 200 feet, you have 4 seconds to slam on the brakes, whether it's a car or a truck. But our main concern for this evening is the letter. And I'm going to ask Ms. Novak if she has any questions regarding what you've discussed,
Mhm.
and we'll take it from there.
Not at this time.
Not at this time? All right. Mr. DeChico?
Yes, sir. Are you familiar with the 4 other businesses referenced in Mr. Pinelli's letter? Pinto Lawn Repair, Grotto Plumbing, Ortiz Welding, and Burkett? Or should I say, are you familiar with them enough to try and draw any distinctions or differences between them related to your applicant's property?
Grotto Plumbing is on Elwood, on Franklin.
Elwood and Commerce, they
Elwood and
sort of
Commerce.
mixed together in there.
Elwood and Commerce, yes, okay. I know where, that's the angled building a little bit.
Rod, I know, I'm familiar with the other, more familiar with the other two.
Excuse me, let me just say, Grotto Plumbing, Burke, Ortiz Well, they're all near where Berger Hardware is.
Yes.
Okay,
That'll give you a general idea.
yeah, I'm been there a million times.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's your orientation.
Okay. Those structures are, first of all, much smaller. The operations are different. None of those, I don't believe, are warehouse structures. They may have storage capacity to the business, but it's not a warehouse. The applicant submitted like a Butler building type of a warehouse structure. It comes in like a little assembly kit, it's brought to the site, and it's assembled on site. It's not going to be something that's constructed on site. So it's an operation, it's a warehouse. I think the scale of those businesses are different than this scale.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Dorr?
In reference to other businesses around that area, if you go down across from the mobile, it's the sewage transfer station for septic. You move up, you're also going into buildings there's one building that I think the contractor moved out, and it's very similar. The front is a house, but the back is a warehouse that's about the size of what you're talking about. So in that area, there is a similar usage from that standpoint.
Okay, that doesn't back up against an R10 zone over there, but
I mean,
maybe
we
that's
don't-
not even,
We
that,
don't control where the lines are drawn.
I completely understand
So
that.
I sympathize with the fact that that line might be behind that.
Mhm.
The other point that we gotta remember is that lot has been undeveloped for at least 30-plus years, if not 40,
Right,
from what we've already gotten from testimony of
Yeah.
neighbors that have come in front of us. So people have gotten used to a piece of property that hasn't been developed, to your point about development. And yeah, I'd love to keep green spaces all over the place, but, so we're also dealing with an emotional control of, yeah, I moved in here and it wasn't something that I was thinking about from that standpoint.
I get that. That's not my personal position, though. I understand that every lot and every applicant has a right to build something, but the other part of me also feels that it needs to be built appropriately to a use that's clearly understood to be compliant with the intent of the code, not something that requires, hoops and smoke and mirrors to justify it. So comparing those two lots, to me, they seem a little different because the scales are different. You have the office building in the front, the blue building. I'm fully familiar with it. It's that building right there. That's used as offices, and then in the back, they have the storage for vehicles. And I don't know how big that lot is. I just don't know how big it is. It could be. The lot size might be different. So I don't know all the specifics of that particular lot and setbacks and all the other things, but there, it's clear that the principal use is that blue office building, and then the incidental use is the storage of whatever they're storing back there that's in the back. That's not what this use is. This principal use is a warehouse for whatever business is going to end up over there, and then by the way, there's also a mezzanine to accommodate some office space to support whatever activity is in that warehouse. So I think here, at least the way I understand the applicant's use, the principal use is the warehouse part. It's, the meat of the project is that, not the other way around.
Ms. Lapazos?
I just want to frame the issue for my own benefit, but maybe for others who share my confusion. There were some comments that were made. I think Mr. Kaur, who first addressed us, made a reference to the zoning district, and I believe that he understood that the property itself is in the CNR district, and I guess abuts an R10 district. but the property is wholly within the CNR district. That's agreed, right?
The project is within the CNR district.
Solely.
Part of their application is changing the lot line definition between the CNR district, enlarging it, and going into the adjoining R10 district, which I believe the applicant owns both lots. And just from the plans, they're doing that to comply with the setback requirements. So the CNR district is being enlarged, and the adjoining residential lot, which they also own, is being reduced.
Now, I know that there's been other proceedings and other boards. I think there was reference made to a planning board meeting that was held, and I'm sure there was evidence that was adduced, there was testimony offered. None of that is necessarily, has been made privy to this board, and in fact, I'm personally unfamiliar with whatever was presented before the planning board. So what I have before me is I have a property that has a development plan, and so far as I know, it only sits within the CNR zoning district. I'm not suggesting that you're incorrect in the anticipated enlargement of the district to allow for this setback that you referenced, but that's not an issue before us. So all that we have is we have a property within a CNR district, and we have a code provision that applies to the CNR district. In substance, what the CNR code allows is it allows a business. I think the actual language, I pulled it up. Let's see if I can grab it again. The actual language reads, business, professional, or banking offices. That was the provision of the code that was interpreted by the building inspector. And he found that the development of this property was covered by that code provision under business. So it's pretty broad, business. And one of the things that we take note of is when an applicant makes a proposal, they're required to submit in writing what their proposal is going to be. In this case, the applicant made a specific proposal for what was identified as development of landscaping supply and equipment storage facility. So far as we have before us an application that restricts the use of the property to that proposal. I know you made reference to a drywall company, you made reference to other uses that didn't seem to have anything to do or otherwise relate to what the applicant actually proposed. So again, not having been privy to whatever happened before the planning board, I'm personally not familiar with that, but I'm guided by what the applicant placed upon their proposal, which was somewhat of a limited scope for the use of the property. The reason I bring that up is because you've taken great pains to try to characterize the use of this property as proposed as being a warehouse. And most of your argument has been based upon the fact that a warehouse use is not permitted and not appropriate. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. So my concern is that I'm not necessarily agreeable to your definition of the property as proposed as a warehouse. It appears to me, again, based upon the applicant's characterization of their intended use of the property, that it's something other, which would, in my view, not necessarily constitute what could be easily defined as a warehouse, but as something that, as the original proposal involved the storage of landscape equipment and ancillary office space, there may be some other type of landscaping supply and equipment storage that takes place there, but that's a far cry from an easy characterization as a warehouse. I mean, it's a business that's operating its day-to-day, whether it's maintaining lawns or it's cutting trees or some other landscaping type operation. A warehouse, in the common understanding, doesn't involve day-to-day operations of a business where workers take vehicles, use them throughout the day, bring them back at the end of the day, park them, and get into their personal vehicles and go home. A warehouse, in the common understanding, is someplace where items are stored, and that's the exclusive function of the property, storage. I don't believe that what I have before me in terms of the applicant's proposed use is simple and exclusive storage of inventory, warehouse use. It appears to me that that argument that you made is unavailing. You took great effort to try to explain why you believe that it's a warehouse, but I'm not sure that I can agree with that. Again, there may have been references made before the planning board that the intended use of the property was somehow different than what was placed upon the application we have before us. But so far as I know, the building inspector made an interpretation based upon a proposal for development of landscaping, supply, and equipment storage facility. Being guided by that, I'm not sure that your concerns about other uses of the property are reasonable. I don't believe that a drywall company, whether it's storage of drywall or whatever it was that you were referring to, would be something that's contemplated by the applicant or permitted if there was to be a site plan that was approved ultimately by the planning board.
All I could offer is at the last planning board meeting, the applicant stated that they're no longer going to use it for their own personal business, and they were going to construct the building essentially as it was designed. There might be a few, maybe instead of having tractor trailers stored on site or parked on site, those won't be there, but still they're going to be box trucks and similar sized vehicles coming in and out, delivering whatever future business ends up going there, whether it's drywall. Drywall was mentioned. I'm only mentioning it because that's what was mentioned. Drywall, maybe an electrical contractor or other similar type of contracting business. So I actually get what you're saying. So all I ask is for a little latitude here because, perhaps it's not a straightforward warehouse structure, but predominantly it's going to be used for storage of materials. It's a 35 by 85 structure that's going to be there for the storage of whatever business ends up going there. And then depending on the business, they'll take what they need for that day, go about what they're doing, and I can't speak anything more than that because that's all that was mentioned at the last planning board meeting. So
But
the
you can
letter,
appreciate, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
I didn't mean to ramble on either. I get what you're saying, and I think I don't want to pigeonhole it into a warehouse. They label it as a storage for that particular business, so there is a storage component. In my opinion, I'd
Agreed.
just like to say the predominant use of that is storage. It flips the office use and storage by making the office secondary. This is showing it to be a storage use primarily. If personal opinion here, if they didn't need to have an office, I don't even know that it would be there.
See, but one of the challenges that we're confronted with is, in effect, it's a very cold decision that we make when we do a code interpretation. It doesn't necessarily involve the concerns that might otherwise be appropriate for us to consider when we have an application that involves a deviation from the code, such as like a variance application, whether it's use or area, or even where the board determines that it's appropriate for us to have a special permit authorization. So a code interpretation can be a cold decision at times, but on the face of it, confronted with, again, the plain words that are in the code, I don't see anything that you've argued that suggests that this proposed use is not a business. Under the code, that's a permitted use in this district, which is the CNR district. That, in effect, is the very focused decision that we have before us, and I just haven't heard anything which undermines the building inspector's determination that the proposed use is a business and that a business is a permitted use in the CNR district. And that's my challenge. Although your presentation has been wonderful, it hasn't undermined my sense that the building inspector was correct in again, his straightforward determination that this is a permitted use in this district.
I respect everything that you just said, and I hear what you're saying. I just have one question, a little bit of a clarification in terms of who oversees a particular aspect of it. The project is using an enlarged version of the CNR district. They are going into the residential district
Well, it hasn't been approved yet. I understand that that's a proposal that they're looking to pursue before the planning board, but
From notes that we're aware of from planning board, none of the CRN zone lines are being changed.
May I
And
ask-
that's not in front of us, so, I mean, that's not anything that we have a determination of. We're just, like George is saying, a
Can
very
I
bold decision.
make a request to you? I mean, it's actually to the applicant through you. I did a FOIL request, and I did ask for I asked for the documents. I have some of them printed here, but I want to also get the applicant's permission in displaying some of those diagrams. Just to this point of moving the lot line, if you haven't seen it, you might as well see it. Because my question is,
It's still not in front of us.
got it.
Whether they change
it's
the lines or
prospective
not.
though. It hasn't happened yet. It's a proposal that you believe is going to be made before the planning board?
Oh, it has been made.
And it's the planning board ruled on
And
it?
no, they closed the public hearing, but they didn't
I
make a decision yet because they knew we were coming here.
I think what we're here for tonight is to determine if the building inspector's letter is correct.
Mhm.
That's what we're here for. I know your presentation was excellent. Mr. Core did a very good presentation on the things. He showed some pictures of accidents and whatnot. And we're very well aware, I'm very well aware, I'm going to speak for myself, I'm very well aware of the situation. But our main concern for tonight is the interpretation of the letter. If they decide to move their CNR boundaries into the R10 zone, that's a whole different ballgame. Has to be, that, again, would be a zoning board issue. But also through the planning board. But it's a cold fact, like Mr. Lopato said, we're dealing with a letter.
Mhm.
And that's what we have to look at, the interpretation of the letter. And I hold my feelings aside, all right, and a lot of the board members hold their feelings aside, one way or another, and that's what we have to look at.
Right.
Right? Like reading a page in the Bible. Each one interprets it a little differently. Are there any, Adrian, do you have anything you wanted to say?
No.
No? Okay. Is there any other questions from the
Anybody
board?
else who may want to
We're
speak?
gonna open it up first.
We're going to. Yeah. All right.
And just for the record, we know you well, but I don't know if you put your name on the record, Mr. Anastasio.
John Anastasio, and I'm at 320 Kelly Street, right around the corner from the site.
Thanks so much.
Okay. All right, we know there's people for and against, so the one who's for, raise his hand. Please come forward. Good evening.
I only have three, I apologize.
All right.
So do we adjourn.
We'll take a quick glance.
Thank you.
Don't kill any more practice.
Ortiz Welding.
So I'll walk you through those when we get to it, but.
Before we start,
Yeah,
would you raise your right hand, please?
sure.
Testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And you are?
I am Dave Sessions with KSCJ Consulting, with the engineers, landscape architects, planners, for the applicant, Mark and Gina DeFabio.
And where are you located?
We're located at 500 Main Street in Armonk.
Okay. All right, so this is, So we're dealing with the letter.
We're dealing with the letter.
All right, go ahead.
And I will deal directly with the letter. As you mentioned, the building inspector submitted this letter. His opinion was set forth in the letter. He mentioned four businesses. There may be more than four, but he mentioned four that are located currently in the CNR district. We went around and took pictures of these four businesses. Most of them, if not all of them, have a residential component very close to where these businesses are located. Specifically, if you look at Ortiz Welding, which is basically the first 4 or 5 photos there, you can see in the back, well within, there is a residential development literally right behind Ortiz Welding, probably within 50 or 100 feet. And there are hundreds, I'm guessing, hundreds of units behind Ortiz. The exact same scenario as we're dealing with, only there aren't hundreds of residents. There are 50 or 75. I'm not sure exactly how many residents. There's a state road in the front. There's the business on the road that's in the CNR district, and directly behind it is a residential development. That's one example. And take a look at the photographs, obviously. Take a look. I'm sure you all know where it is, and you know the situation. Very similar. Grotto Plumbing is right across the street, basically from Ortiz. Same situation. Burke Heat, it's all the same.
Well, Grotto has the railroad tracks behind it.
Grotto has a railroad tracks behind
And
it.
Burke Heat's got the railroad tracks.
They've got the
behind
residential development right in front of it, right across the street, right? It's all, they're all using the same road. Trucks are coming in and out of both businesses onto the state road, which is immediately adjacent to the residential district behind it. Obviously, different topography, different situation, but with respect to zoning, CNR district, what's allowed in the CNR district, and adjacent to a residential district, this is exactly what we're talking about. It's already in existence, it's been approved, it's been operational, and this is what's being proposed. I just wanted you to have that FYI. This is not a warehouse at all. It's not a warehouse. It's not a warehouse use. It is a contractor's use, whether it be a drywall company, a plumbing supply company, an electric supply company, a lawn and landscape supply company. It has a storage component to it. The main focus of the use is the business and the office. You cannot run a business without an office. This has an office component, and you'll recall 5 or 6 months ago we were before your board, and we had an office component which was a detached building at that time that we wanted, or the applicant wanted, a little bit of flexibility. They wanted a little more space in the storage component, so they felt that maybe the office can be detached. Your board, my client is going to yell at me for saying this, but your board correctly said, listen, you've got alternatives. You made a decision. You've got a reasonable alternative to not ask for these variances between the office and the storage building. Put it in the storage building, make it all one, like every other business or most other businesses. We didn't like that answer, but we ate it, and we did it. And we went back to the planning board, and we put it all in the building. We now require no variances from your board. You made the right decision. We then went back to the planning board. The public had concerns. The planning board had concerns. The main focus of the concern was the trucks coming in and out of the facility. At that time, we were proposing, Lawn Green has trailers, not semi-tractor trailers, but trailers. You know, a pickup truck with a landscape trailer, 30 feet, 35 feet in length. People were concerned, the board and the community was concerned about queuing and coming in and out of the roadway. These trailers are slow, they're large, safety concern, justified. We've since committed to prohibiting trailers on the site. Lawn Green has given up its proposal to operate its business there. They've been in this community 35 years. They wanted to keep the business in this community for another 35 years. Their son is running the business. This was their dream. We heard the community, we heard the planning board. He gave up. He's no longer going there, okay? Now we're faced with marketing the property, similar situation, similar business. Maybe it's a lawn and landscape business, but the difference is no tractor trailers, there was never tractor trailers, no trailers, period. They've prohibited trailer dump trucks. They've prohibited any on-site storage. Lawn Green is now not going into the property, and I want to put up a visual. And probably most importantly, the neighbors, and to a certain extent the planning board, was concerned that the business operation would kind of encroach on the residential parcel. Now, just to back up, this yellow area and this area is all R10. This is a residential parcel, which the applicant also owns. This is the CNR parcel. We are not proposing to change the district boundary line. The district boundary line stays the same. The town planner has confirmed that that is the case and that's acceptable. And the planning board, to a certain extent, unofficially has confirmed that that is acceptable. The lot line is changing. The lot line we are proposing to change to put back here. Now, I'm getting into the weeds here. This is more planning board discussion than zoning board, and I understand that the building inspector's letter is really what's before us tonight. But I'm just trying to get you to understand. The district boundary line is not changing. If we were proposing a district boundary line change, we would have to come before you and perhaps even the town board. Okay? Now, the reality of this is this strip, which is part of the residential lot, is encumbered by steep slopes, severely steep slopes. We've gone back and forth with the planning board over more than a half a dozen meetings saying there will be no encroachment into this zone. It can't. It's a steep slope. We're not, first of all, there's no storage of materials on site, okay? But if they did decide to store materials on site, we certainly can't store it on this 25% slope. Just not possible physically. But in addition to all of the restrictions that we've now put on the property, we have offered a deed restriction in that yellow area within that residential lot that will run with the land in perpetuity. It will be on the deed of the property. So if the owner decides to sell, or if the owner doesn't decide to sell, lease the property out, and the property changes hands, this is a deed restriction, legal restriction. Nothing can go into that area, okay, of the residential strip. So all of this we've committed now, we've given up. We gave up the detached building because your board denied the variance. We've given up the semi-tractor, the tractor trailers. We've given up the dump trucks. We've given up the storage of materials on site. And we've deed restricted this area. And what you have before you is proof positive that the CNR district, and by the way, look, if there wasn't a residential district immediately adjacent to this parcel, this would be a completely different discussion, I think. It's a CNR district. X, Y, Z is allowed in the CNR district. That's it. It's allowed. Just so happens that there is a residential property or parcel or zoning district immediately adjacent to that. Should that affect things? Well, yeah, it should. And the public has spoken. We have provided a robust landscaping and screening plan. We have given up a half a dozen things. The owner is now not providing his business here. We've done everything in our power. We've acquiesced and appeased the neighbors as much as we can. At this point, I think we've done what we can do. And again, what's before you is a determination from the building inspector, period. I got into the weeds, but I thought it was important to just retract the history, why we've done what we've done. And the reality is, it's a CNR district, and I can run through 35 different uses that are allowed on this district.
We did that last time.
I did that, I'm sorry to bore you.
No, no,
I won't do it again.
No, it's okay, I remember, I was.
No, I know.
I was asking you to.
Okay, you asked me and I did it. I don't want to do it again.
Just what's the purpose for the lot line change?
The purpose for the lot line change is simply, there's a 30-foot rear yard setback.
Okay, so you're avoiding a
Okay.
variance.
We're avoiding a variance. There's also, we wanted additional, not wanted, we needed additional parking, and one of the public's concerns was there's not enough parking on the site. First of all, there's plenty of parking on the site for this type of use. But this area here is proposed for four parking spaces. This used to be 2 trailer parking spaces. We have now eliminated the tractor trailers. I keep on saying tractor trailers, forgive me. There was never tractor trailers proposed. Trailers. If you have parking in the front yard in a CNR district, you need to set your building back 50 feet from the street line. It's a bizarre thing in the code, but that's the fact. So we've got 50-foot setback in the front. We've got a 30-foot setback in the rear. It's already a narrow property. It's only 80 or 85 feet wide to begin with. The change in the lot line is strictly to try to keep quite frankly, keep the building further away from the residential district and abide by the 50-foot setback in the front. And frankly, it's a 3,000 square foot building. We're proposing 27 feet in height, which is 8 feet lower than a house. A single-family home can go here and can be 8 feet higher.
So, Mr. Sessions, do you have any more questions? Mr.
No?
So, but anyway, I just want to take a look at the pictures. I'm sure you know the area, but the fact of the matter is, we're talking about the exact same thing. And Sal enumerated four properties. There might be more, but this is exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about a business in the front on a state road, residential properties immediately behind it. That's what we've got in the CNR district. That's what we're proposing.
So, Mr. Sessions, as you brought it up and as it's a bone of contention, when you say that your client has agreed to prohibit storage of materials, can you give a little more detail as to exactly what that means so everybody's clear?
That means that there'll be nothing outside. Nothing stored outside. There'll be vehicles, there'll be pavement. That's it.
But inside the building, there could still be materials?
Oh, well, absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
okay. Okay, so,
And by the way, that was not our original proposal. And we were not ever planning on storing, I mean, look, if anybody knows Lawn Green is a reputable firm. They've been here 35 or 40 years. He's a landscape designer. Anyway, it's a neat property. Go ahead.
in your presentation, and I apologize if I misunderstood what you were saying, but I thought I heard you say that the boundaries aren't moving, but you're moving the lot line.
Yes,
So could you clarify that, the distinction between those terms that you were using?
absolutely. The town's zoning code and the zoning map has finite boundaries. of particular zoning districts, right? There are lines. This line is a zoning district boundary. This is part of the CNR district, as well as the properties, the 2 gas stations, the car wash, all of the other commercial properties right across the street. It's all within a district. From this red dashed line up is an R10 residential district. We are proposing a lot line change, meaning the lot that is now a half an acre in size or so will now extend to here. And yes, that lot line will encroach into the business district, or the residential district. The applicant owns that parcel.
Okay, and that has not been approved yet, that's part of the planning application, and that is under discussion at this point?
Absolutely. And rightfully so, because it's a unique situation, but the public has brought it up, the planning board has brought it up, and I believe your board has even brought it up. Hey, what's that all about? Is that allowed? Yes, it's allowed.
So now I have one more question, more particularly related to the application before us and the letter and the approval and the appeal of that approval. The 4 businesses that were noted in the building inspector's letter, in which you provided us pictures of, we understand where they're located, they're in the CNR zone, and they're abut the road and abut residential properties and things of that nature, but can you speak to the actual operations of these businesses and the similarities between what is proposed in any way that might be relevant?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of the 4 businesses that the building inspector has put forth. You know, I mean, I've driven that road 1,000 times. I know it well. Ortiz Welding. They have got a business component to their operation. You come in, there's an office, there are people, there are support staff. There's also, in the back and in the other building, there are storage of materials, welding materials, right? And by the way, Ortiz, if you look at Ortiz's layout, I haven't done a calculation, but it's probably more than 3,000 square feet. It takes up quite a bit of the frontage on that street. So it's, you know, this is not excessive. Similar, the Grotto Plumbing, an office component, plumbing supplies in the storage facility, pipes, fittings, glue, whatever else, you know, they store.
Things that they store but use in their daily operation.
Absolutely.
And then
Burke
as
Heat.
their trucks go in and out to do jobs and things.
Absolutely. Burke Heat,
Very
same thing. Storage of HVAC material, office component. This is exactly
Similar
correct.
to what's being proposed.
Similar to what's being proposed. Exactly what's being
And
proposed.
actually, Nick, Burke also has fuel oil tanks, so it's even at a different level from what the other businesses.
Okay.
So, sorry to take up so much time. I thought it was important to just give a little bit of back history and,
Board members have any other questions for the applicant?
No, thank you.
All right. I know there are people here who are against the application. Main concern is I don't want to have duplicate conversations. So if you wish to be recognized and come forward and state what you feel that you're against this, the idea of being against this application, fine. But I don't want to have somebody else come up right after that and say the same thing over again. So, gentleman over here. Raise your right hand, please. Testimony about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
And your name?
My name's Hector Rivera. I reside at 344 Jackson Avenue, just above here. We don't have a photo of it here, but I'm literally, from my deck, I can literally throw a stone and
Okay.
hit their proposed barn, you know, so my whole issue, and safe to say, I could speak for the guys on my block, that it's a safety issue for us, you know. We have our children that back and forth playing outside, and they're on their bikes, scooters, or whatever, and that corner is just, I mean, every, probably I would say 3 or 4 months approximately, there's someone that gets into an accident there. And if we have something like that where trucks or, you know, pickup trucks with toppers on the back are coming around, you know, trying to get out or back in, it's inevitable. It's just a matter of time where something, God forbid, you know, terrible will happen, you know. And, you know, with him changing from going from his lawn business to subbing it out to someone else, that's a little more nerve-wracking because we're not going to know who is going to be in that particular area. You know, we're a tight-knit community here. We all know each other. We, you know, tell each other when we're going on vacation, let each other know, listen, if there's a car here that we don't know, give me a call, or so on and so forth. But my main concern, I don't want to, you know, take up too much of your time, is the safety concern about our community, you know. And again, the guy, Mark, and his wife Gina, they're probably stand-up people. I don't know them personally, but, you know, I've only been in the community for 15 years. Some of my neighbors have been here longer. We're not opposed. I'm sure, like John said, they're probably very nice people. I don't have nothing against them at all whatsoever, no malice intent, but it's just, you know, we wouldn't mind something of, you know, residential, you know, properties going there, maybe a couple of houses there. Something that's just not of commercial use, you know what I mean? Because at any point in time after this is done, in the future, if it goes their way, they can change something up, you know. We're thinking about something like in the nature of you know, salt in the future, that they're backing up, you know, for a snowstorm or something like that. And I'm particular myself, Scott, you know, Greg, we're all next to each other, and we can see that we're gonna hear it. We can hear it from the gas station themselves, you know. And yes, I believe it was Mr. Collins that was here last Thursday. He mentioned, did I know there was a commercial property behind there when I purchased the home? And yes, I did know that. But, you know, I'm just thinking along the lines of, you know, the safety of our community.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I just add something, Mr. Chairman? Mr.
Yes.
Rivera, I just want
Yes.
to, and this is for the benefit of everyone else as well. You do understand that the issue before the board this evening is a very narrow one.
I totally understand.
Although we did have an opportunity to get a better understanding of the safety issues that the proposed use of the property presents, and those issues are real, and they will be properly heard by the board that has jurisdiction over those issues, and in effect, that's the planning board. So as we're the zoning board, our function is, it's very limited to a code interpretation and whether or not the building inspector made a correct interpretation of a provision of the building code that, again,
What it-
allows for a
and what it's being
development in
used
CNR
for.
district. Those safety concerns that you raise, which may be the same that many of your neighbors share, I don't want to say it's wasted before us, but it's just not relevant to the code interpretation issue that we're solely focused on.
I understand. Just wanted to make a
I
point.
appreciate
Whenever
that.
we come up
And I
here,
do.
I'm
I
gonna come up here, I'm gonna say the same thing. Sorry to bore you guys, but,
It's
you
not
know, it
boring.
immediately affects me particularly, you know, because it's literally behind my residence, you know, and
We
we
have
just
this-
would like to see, you know, a dentist's office or something like
We've
that.
had this in the past. We've had a gas station on Route 9A that never got built.
Built.
And I don't know if you're familiar with that application. They came before the zoning board, and we were able to make adjustments to the site plan to allow for adequate screening.
Sure.
And most of the people were complaining about light, And I said, well, if you look at the Audi dealer across 9A.
Plus 9A now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a light.
And then
unto itself.
Amazon and, you
But
know.
what we tried to do is work within the framework of the law.
Sure.
And as Mr. Lepatos mentioned, and Mr. DeChico, we're only concentrating on
The letter.
interpretation of this item. When this was brought before before the zoning board, rather, the application, it was denied. We had specific reasons. I had my reasons. Other board
Like you said
members had
about
their
Stevie
own.
Wonder. I know. I remember. Yeah.
So,
It's probably
so
who
here we
saw
are
people.
again today, you know?
Right. And I
But
get it.
Something is going to happen.
Something's gonna happen. It's inevitable. I know that. The neighborhood knows that. You know, we all know that. But you know, I mean, it's safe to say, I would speak for all of us. We would like something more residential. You know, more of passenger cars as opposed to commercial vehicles backing in possibly after hours or prior to morning hours, and you know, that's
We
just how
have
I'm concerned.
It's a diversion for a minute.
Sure.
Cars and trucks coming off at 9A. The speed limit in our town is 30 miles an hour. School
Stevie
bus-
Wonder sees
the-
that sign. I know.
School buses don't do 30 miles an hour
Right.
in this town, okay?
My daughter's on one of those. I
Yeah,
know.
so when they come around that turn at that speed, now a car, if it's doing about 40, you know, the 9A, they're doing 40, 50 miles an hour up at
I know.
9A. They come around that turn, you're probably doing about 50 feet per second. So if you got 200
least.
feet, for a car, you could probably stop if you slammed your foot on the brakes.
Right.
If you got a
right.
truck, a panel truck,
No.
no way
no
on
way.
God's earth that you're
I
going
know.
to be able to stop in time. Especially the fact that you got to, and today, a lot of people driving, they're distracted. There's a
Like
cell
this.
phone
This is
and
the way they
something
drive.
else, you know,
I know.
combing the hair, doing whatever
yeah.
they're doing. So you see that, and a lot of times if I have to drive into Manhattan, I feel like I'm Mario Andretti.
Yeah, yeah.
And the
Just
Indianapolis
take
500.
the train, yeah,
On the
take-
Sprain, I'm on the Sprain Parkway doing 65 miles an hour in the right
And
lane.
they're blinking
people
at you.
are passing me like I'm going backwards.
I'm
So we
aware.
have this, and those are concerns for the planning board.
Right. And
We-
and
Yeah,
along.
we brought it up at this board, but these are all planning board issues, and I understand where everybody's coming from, all right?
Right.
But we have to stay with our own jurisdiction of the law.
And within what we're
Yeah.
speaking of
So
today. I understand.
That's what we're dealing with. So is this within the CNR zone? We'll vote on it and find out. Each board member has his own opinion,
Excellent.
okay?
Thank you, everyone.
And I don't want anyone in the audience to think for a minute that this board does any favoritism towards a particular application.
No.
Okay? We treat
Totally
everybody the
understood.
same.
Yes, sir.
We go strictly by the merits of the application. If
Thank
there's
you,
anyone
everyone.
who wishes to say
Thank you, guys.
anything else other than we have here?
You don't want any more on the safety issue?
No, I can't do the safety issues. Yes? Raise your right hand, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Is the testimony about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but truth, so help you God?
So help me God.
And your name?
Hi, my name's Rich McGuire. I live at 141 Bennick Place, so Jackson Avenue. It would be where Hector's house is. I'd be the next one. So I back up on 9A. I hear all the accidents that happen over there in that triangle and everything. I know that's not your concern. My concern is business goes in there. It goes belly up. Now you're stuck with an abandoned building there. How many buildings are unoccupied in the town, causing an eyesore? That's something to take into consideration. Driving by it every day, seeing an abandoned building, possibly becoming dilapidated. Not a good look for the town. Let's keep Mount Pleasant pleasant.
Thank you.
I agree with
That's
you.
all I have to say.
Well, one of the problems we have with the vacancy rates, not only in our town, but I was in Manhattan. You walk down Lexington Avenue, or even Madison, a lot of vacant stores, and that's all because of the COVID.
Mm-hmm.
We had it 2 years ago, and a lot of people went out of business.
Yeah.
And it's the casualty of the time, if you want to call it that.
All right.
You do have it in Hawthorne. As soon as you come over the bridge on the left, there's a couple of vacancies over there. I've noticed that the Peruvian restaurant changed hands, and now it's Catharsis. It's a bar and grill. For a while, it's going to take time for the communities, even our community, to readjust and redefine itself and what businesses go in. And that's going to be a process of time.
Right.
But the zoning board tries to work to help people. I guess that's the most important thing. We're not here to say you rubber stamp and say you're denied. What we try to do is find a solution to a problem. And so far, I've been doing this for years, so far we've been pretty successful. You know, we deny some applications and we also approve applications. So with that intent, we'll see what happens tonight on this. Listen, but again, this is strictly an interpretation of the letter.
Yeah, I just wanted
Yeah.
to make that point.
No, I agree. I agree. You're absolutely correct.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion if there's no other speakers.
all right. Does the board want to have a little discussion on this matter?
Yeah, I'd like to go over to a business session with this, Mr. Chairman.
You want to go into a business session? Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go into a business session regarding this particular application. There will be no audience participation. We will not ask you any questions.
Why are you doing it now? Let's do the other applicants then.
We did.
No, the other.
applicants, like we've done in the past, we do business section at the end.
Mr. Chairman, the business, after we do
Wait a minute, I'm a little confused right here.
What I thought we'd do is hold this matter for consideration till the end of our meeting when we conduct our business session.
Okay.
Or we could continue with matters Z 2434, 35, 39, and 33.
Okay, I didn't understand that. I thought,
Thank you.
right, so,
excuse me, one moment.
We want to inform the community that they can watch the TV
yeah,
right here.
yeah. The application from Scott Core will be held over until the end of our meeting, and we'll go into a business session and discuss this. You have an opportunity to either stay here, we would love to have you, or you can watch it on television, Channel 26 if you got Verizon, and you'll understand the outcome of this particular application. So with that being said, we're holding this application till the end of the evening. We're going to go through the other applications. It's only fair to the other people. And then we'll at the end, we'll make a determination regarding Mr. Pinelli's letter and the determination on the CNR zoning application. So whatever you folks want to do, you're welcome to stay, you're welcome to leave, whatever. Thank you. Good night.
Keep going.
All right. Next application is 24-34. Now, I'm going to pronounce this incorrectly, but bear with me. Najat Ojil and Rabi Nazar. If I pronounced the name incorrectly, I humbly apologize.
We just ask the members of the community, if you can, to close the back door, because I know there's probably going to be a lot of conversation. That way it doesn't interfere with the meeting. Thank you.
If you folks aren't going to testify, you're welcome to have a seat over here.
Thank you, Mr. Domofsky.
Raise your right hand, please. Testimony about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And you are?
Paulette Domofsky.
Okay. And your office location?
Thornwood, New York, Domofsky Architecture.
Okay.
Good evening, members of the board, Kathy
We need a
and
little comedy. We need some
Chairman.
comedy in here tonight.
You know, I haven't seen you guys in a while. I guess that's a good thing.
Now
right?
we see your husband bouncing in and out of
Yeah,
here.
give him all the dirty work.
Okay, this is regarding, and the premise is located at 32 Hay Street in Pleasantville, New York. It's an appeal from the decision of the building inspector from the town of Mount Pleasant, and it's on the tax map as section 99.17, block 3, lot 68. And the application is for a proposed two-story addition with a new covered roof entry on a legal standard parcel of 15,000 square feet in the R10 zone. And what you're asking for is a front yard setback, 30 feet required. Existing is 19, you're going for 15. You're actually looking for a 4-foot variance,
Correct.
okay? And then the front yard setback on Sarles Lane, 30 feet required, and you're asking for 2.4 inches,
Yes.
correct?
0.2 feet.
0.2 feet is 2.4 inches.
Right.
A little less,
Right.
a little over 2 3/8.
Right. Which I believe may have been de minimis had we not had the other front yard variance.
Yeah, see, when I was
So-
growing up, we didn't have computers, we had to use our brains. So we had to know our times table. Okay,
So I'm just going to give you the big picture, because I think you all understand the two front yards and the
Yes.
setback issues for a corner lot. This is a photograph of the existing house, and we are adding an addition to the right side of the house within the buildable area, so we're not looking for a setback there. Where we're looking for the variance is on the side of Sarles, which is the side yard. We're adding a dormer to this house, and we're increasing the existing nonconformity. So this side of the house is that 0.2 feet or inches, and we're just extending up for the second floor to add a dormer. So we're not extending the existing house. In the front, the same thing. We're not extending this front door. We're not coming into that front yard setback at all. What we're doing is we're rebuilding the landing, because there's no landing, there's just, you come right outside and there's a couple of steps. So we're rebuilding a 4-foot landing with a couple of steps, adding columns and adding a roof balcony. And we're also cleaning up this front yard a little bit. So right now they have 2 driveways. We're getting rid of this driveway because there'll be a building here. We're going to move this driveway over, and we've met with Dave Smith on this, so we know how far over we can move it because it's in the corner. And we're really cleaning up this house. This is what we're proposing it looks like. So this is the addition. This is the existing house with the existing front. And these are columns with this overhang, a balcony, which is accessible from upstairs on the second floor. And then this is that dormer where it's in alignment with the existing house. So we're not impeding any more than what's already there, with the exception of the columns and the overhang in the front. So I think this is a positive addition to the fabric of the neighborhood. I think it would have positive impacts to the neighborhood. It's very contextual, and we request those variances.
when we were out there on Saturday, and the applicant's wife showed us, demonstrated to us what the plan, basic plan was, we had understood. We're not really increasing the variance at all, either on the sols or in the front. So basically, it's a vertical
Yes.
movement, that's it.
Yes.
And
Right.
the other side is, we don't even concern ourselves with the addition on the right from where I am, because that's within the building line.
Exactly.
Okay. To me, I have no questions. Ms. Novak?
No questions.
Mr. DeGico?
Can you show me that picture again of the proposal? Hey, that's not gonna need a variance, you sure?
Which one?
The extension to
This
the
one?
right?
No, no.
You have enough room on the side?
I have plenty, I'll show you.
Okay, if you say so.
This is, so, this is the front of the house, this is the existing house, this is the addition, and this is the line of the setback. So
Okay.
we're well within
Good
the
for
setback.
the applicant to take a picture for
It
that,
was
great.
perfect.
Check that with the benefit of the two front yards.
No, they're going to the,
Yeah.
they're going to the,
Going to the side where
they're
they
going
can
to the
do it.
right, closer to the neighbor, so.
Mr.
If
Dorr?
Fits, it fits.
The only question I have is clarification. You talked about the driveway, 'cause obviously we walked all around the house.
Yes,
So you're eliminating the one side. Is the other driveway gonna continue around that front
Yes.
section to the back?
yes,
And it's gonna be going, and that garage is not being connected to the new addition?
no, no.
Mr. Lepatos?
Yeah, just in the theme of clarification, I'm going to clarify one thing that I think is helpful to other applicants as well in the future, and that is with regard to the measurement point for your front yard setback from the front door. It's created by the overhang or the covered area over this landing.
Yes.
If there was no covered landing, the measuring point would be the house structure itself, but because you're building this covering, it's the covering that actually extends out, but no further toward the street than the existing stone landing.
Yes.
So you're not actually encroaching upon the distance to the street.
With the building.
You're only adding, in effect, a covering over an existing stone entryway, and that's why the measurement point changes.
Yes.
That's why you need this variance for the
Yes, yes. It is a new stone landing.
which is
Okay.
perfectly fine. But I just want to make,
Yep,
sometimes
you're
people
right.
don't understand why the measurement point changes. So I'm just trying to explain that.
Right.
Thank you.
Does the board have any other questions for the applicant? Does the board wish to make a determination?
Anybody for or against the
Anyone here for or against this application? I think everybody here is for the other applicant.
Mr. Chairman, seeing as though there's no community speakers on this application, I propose and move that the board approve application Z24-34 based upon the plans as submitted.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All right. Second by Ms. Novak. Mr. Dorr?
Approve.
Okay, and Ms. Lepatos?
Aye.
And the chairman votes aye, so it's carried 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Good luck.
Next. Oh, you're doing the next one also? Is there anything else on this agenda that I have to be knowing about?
Double dipping here, what is?
Okay. All right, this is regarding the application for Mark and Jacqueline Tadaldi, is that correct? Oh, good. The owner of the premise is located at 132 Sherman Avenue in Hawthorne, New York. And on the tax map, it's located as 89/112.18-2-21. The application is for the proposed legalization of an existing shed on a legal standard parcel of 12,500 square feet in the R10 zone. And the variance on the rear yard setback for Prince Street, 5 feet is required. Existing is 4.8, so you're asking for a 2-foot.
I should play that number. I mean, that's the same.
A 2 3/8 variance, inch variance there. And then the garden shed on 59 feet is required, existing is 66, proposing 66. So you got a 52.5 foot variance request. So you're not doing anything with the second one. It's the first application, the first rear yard setback on Prince is the real question. Am I correct?
I don't understand what you,
You have two dimensions.
yes.
All right, so the 59-foot requirement I don't believe is that much of an issue as the side yard, the rear yard setback to Prince.
The front yard setback. Right, so this is the site plan, this is the existing house.
Right.
This is Sherman, the front. So we have two front yards. The shed can't be in the front yard. So we have to take the measurement at the midway point of the structure. So this hatched area represents the allowable area that we can put the shed. The shed is technically in the front yard with respect to Prince Street, but it's not the front yard proper. So I know that you've all been there and you've seen where the shed is. It actually backs up to the shed behind them. And I feel like it's in the best possible location on this site in the spirit of the code, right? So there's a house next door. There's a gentleman who's here who wrote a letter in support of this application because he's got a swing and a seating area that he sits in every night and would be aghast if there was a shed put right there. So he is here to I actually have a letter. I think you might have gotten
Reviewed those,
this
right,
letter.
Ken?
Okay, so we have a letter, and he actually got some support from other neighbors saying that they would love to keep the shed where it is. And most importantly, I have a letter from the neighbor who lives across Prince Street, who this would impact the most. And he feels that it's completely shielded. This is actually a picture of what he would see, and he's got no objection to this application.
What he sees now.
This is what he sees now. Yes. So I feel like the shed is really
And again, you're just
located.
legalizing the existing shed, there's no new shed going up.
No.
It's just going to be continued in exactly the manner that it appears in that photo.
Yes, and if I may just add, when they bought the house, there was a shed. This is where the shed was located. I think it was there when you got there, right? This is where the shed was located. It was actually on town property. It was over their property line. When they took it down, they moved it within their property. They just didn't realize they had to come so far in.
Ms. Novak, you have any questions?
No, we were at the site.
Okay, Mr. DeChico?
I have no questions. I would just comment that it would, based upon our site visit, it would seem that the shed was in the most appropriate space, the least obtrusive space, and it was shielded and screened to an adequate measure from both our visual inspection, at least from my point of view, and as shown tonight on the record.
Okay. Mr. Dorr?
My question was answered on how long the shed's been there. It was actually enhanced from what was already there.
All right, Mr. Lapatos?
I'm just going to point out that the situation here, which often arises, is where you have two, in effect, applications of front yard code provisions. Otherwise, from the appearance of the property, the shed is in the rear yard of the property. It's opposite the front entry of the property. That all being said, that's why the variance looks as significant as it is. It's again because there's a corner lot. That all being said, I have no additional questions. Thank you.
Is anybody here for or against this application? That being said, no.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve Z 2435 as submitted.
All right, I have a proposal by Mr. Dorr. Do I have a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Mr. Lapatos. Ms. Novak?
Approve. Aye.
Mrs. DeChico?
Aye.
All right, chairman votes aye. Carried 5-0. Approval.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, next application is Wendy Cornell, the owner of the premises at 1130 Bedford Road, Pleasantville. Good
Hello,
evening.
everybody. My name is Follett.
Raise your right hand. Too fast for me. Raise your right hand. Testimony about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
All right, and your name?
My name is Vladimir Levin. I'm the architect for the project.
Good Russian name.
It is.
It is.
100%.
That's right. And your office location?
345 Kear Street in Yorktown Heights.
Okay. This is regarding the building inspector's decision of a parcel designated on a tax map as section 105.19, block 1, lot 24. The application is for a special use permit, Town Code 21835, for a gatehouse, guest house, and caretaker's cottage on a legal parcel of 105,000 square feet in the R40 zone. And the applicant is seeking approval of an addition and renovation to the existing guest house.
That is all correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so it's a big property for the zone. There's a couple of buildings on here. This is the existing guest house, and it's been there for a while. It's you know, has full living accommodations, bathroom, bedroom, kitchen, and we're only looking to infill this area in gray, so we're not looking to expand beyond the existing footprint of the building. So we're looking to just fill in this area here and put a new roof to have more spacious interior. If you like, I could show you the floor plans and the elevations.
Mm-hmm.
This is what the existing building looks like, existing floor plan. So you could see here that this is the area that we're looking to fill in the building. This is the new floor plan, open space with a loft area, as you can see up there. And this is the elevation and perspective. This is where the front is. It's a very modest building with a dormer.
Is it gonna be any higher than it currently is?
It is. The current building is 10 feet. This one will be 13, measured to the midpoint of the roof. So this is a slightly steeper pitched roof, so we could get some more volume in the living space, and also that we have enough space in the loft area.
The question that went through my mind is that, and it's relative to this, and yet it's not relative to this. It was originally on the application as being a guest house, a gatehouse. And to me, the definition of a gatehouse is at the beginning of a property,
Yeah.
the beginning of a driveway, or for security or things of this nature. So this is actually a guest house.
It's a guest house, yeah. I'm not sure why it was listed on the application as a gatehouse.
Okay. When we were out there, Mrs. Cornell showed us around the property, and my personal opinion is I don't think the fact that you're just closing up the front and raising the roof slightly is not a major consideration. Also, the effect that it would have on any neighbors in the area, you don't see anything. But the only other thing I was going to ask you, they have, it looks like I'll call it not a swing set, but something hanging up there. I think George Washington was swinging on that thing when he was a kid.
It comes down, I mean, we should probably.
I was going to ask you that, and then you're going to get rid of that spear that's hanging from the tree.
That's scary, yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I thought it was I was looking for a tripwire on the floor there as we walked around. I have no further questions. Ms. Novak?
If I recall correctly from our site visit, the front of the building was quite deteriorated, and if I recall correctly, Ms. Cornell stated that there was some damage inside, water damage, so this would make it usable again?
It would, definitely, yeah.
No more questions.
Okay. Mrs. DeChico?
As the neighbor immediately to the back closest to this guest house opined in any way, shape, or form?
Wendy?
See, you mean the ones right on the other side of the fence where they have the two-story garage right there? I texted her and told her about it about over a week ago, and she was fine with it.
Mr. Dorr?
I have no question.
Mr. Lepatos?
Well, aside from the fact that I thought the property was very impressive, I just want to make one point, and that is, this is designated as a guest house, not a rental unit. So there's
Right.
no intention on part of the owner, no misunderstanding about the nature of the use of the guest house as a guest house, not as a rental property.
Strictly for personal use, yes, of the owners.
Nothing further, thank you.
Is there anyone here for or against the application? Nope.
Being that said, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that Z 2438, 39, my glasses off, as submitted be approved.
Okay, I have a request by Mr. Dorr. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. DeChico. Ms. Novak?
Aye.
Mr. Lepatos?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Carried. Next application is 2433, Edmund Diego Viveros. Good evening. There you go. You raise your right hand. Testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And you are?
I'm the architect for the project. My name is Richard Paroli, and my address is 86 Winfield Avenue, Harrison, New York.
Okay. This is regarding the premises located at 213 Albany Avenue, Thornwood, New York. Is that correct?
Correct.
And it's designated on the tax map as section 106.15, block 2, lot 5.
Yes.
And the application is for a proposed two-story addition, replacement of an existing front porch, and legalization of a 6-foot-high fence in both side yards on a legal substandard parcel of 6,250 square feet, R10 zone, correct?
Sounds right. The only thing I want to correct a little bit, I would not categorize this as a second-story addition.
I bring this up. We call it, I don't like the word substandard, because it's only regarding the number of square feet.
Yes.
So if you had, let's say an R10 zone, if you had 9,999.9 square feet, it would be still considered a substandard part. It has nothing to do with the value of the properties.
Yes. Okay, that's good.
I bring that up once in a while because we don't like to offend anybody.
That's good. Terminology of all these things has a habit of doing that.
So there are 5 applications that you're looking for. Number 1, rear yard setback 30 feet required, existing 23.66, proposing 23.66, and you're requesting a 6.34 foot variance, correct?
Yes.
Maximum lot coverage, 20% is required, existing is 20.4. You're proposing 8.9 feet or 29, no, this added wrong, 29.3%.
Yes.
Front yard setback, 30 feet, 29.6, proposing 29.6, and the variance is 4.8 inches, okay? Side yard setback, 10 feet, 7.5 feet is existing, proposing 7.5 feet, variance 2.48 feet.
Yes.
And finally, combined side yard, 25 feet required, existing is 19, proposing 19, and you're looking for 5.37 foot variance.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, a point of order, are you going to bring up the?
Yeah, I'm just gonna, just to make a note, the fence part got cut off, it didn't bring it in. So he's also requesting a 2-foot variance for a 6-foot fence,
Okay.
existing 6-foot fence.
So I would just like to describe the reason each of these variances has a different basis for why it's being requested. The area of addition in the front and the addition in the back is to correct certain deficiencies in the interior layer of the house. The house currently, as it's laid out, when you walk in, there's no guest closet. You walk right into the living room. In order to get to the 2 bedrooms of the house, one of which is the master bedroom, you have to walk to the back of the house, then turn towards these bedrooms through the kitchen, then go into the master bedroom and the other bedroom. Since there is no dining room, they use one of these bedrooms as the dining room. So to correct that, the small addition that's in the front area, which is within the setbacks, would enable us to correct those 2 problems, go directly into the master bedroom and not have to go through the whole house. The addition in the back is to provide a separate dining room, and it's in basically the same area where the existing deck is. Now, I realize your zoning ordinance doesn't measure setbacks relative to decks the same way as it does to buildings, but it's following sort of the same distance into the backyard. The second floor, there is already existing second floor. It's one of these floors that's called a half-story, where part of it is under sloping roofs. But there is a bedroom upstairs and some storage space and a bathroom. So it's not like we're adding a whole second floor. We're changing the configuration by raising the roof so the side walls goes all the way up to an 8-foot height ceiling, and then elevating and changing the slope of the roof. So it's not really a second floor addition. And that's there because the owners do not like having these areas where it's under these sloping roofs like a lot of these older finished attics have. Those variances are different issues than the fences. The fence variance requests are a combination of things. The fence in the rear was built in the wrong place. Whoever put up the fence was actually built on the neighbor's property in the back. So when we were discussing it with the guys in the building department, you will say you can't correct the fence because you don't know, it's not on your property. Okay, we have to move it. As long as we're moving it and putting it on our property, we'll put it in the setback area that's required for fences and put it at the higher height. The other fences on the side were built to the wrong height. One was to accommodate the neighbor for this would be on the, let's say on the lower part of your site plan. The owner was trying to help the neighbor. This fence is their rear yard. For them, their rear yard, the fence is permitted to be 6 feet high. So when the Viveros were building their fence, the owner said, could you please just increase it so it's okay for my rear yard? They said yes, not realizing that that would be causing them to need a variance to go above the 4-foot height for a side yard setback. So that's the reason for the fence variance requests. And that's the reason for each of these variances.
So basically, what you're doing is you're increasing the vertical height of the building. You're not going in any direction horizontally, because according to this, the rear yard setback, you have slightly 6.34 inches, feet rather. But all of your other ones, your front yard setback, your side yard setback, those are all remaining the same.
Yes.
So we're just going
Straight up.
right. Okay, fine. And the combined yard setback, is that, now when we were out there, the fence is a solid fence, am I correct?
Well, it's a solid fence on side yards, solid, and then the top 2 feet are lattices.
Okay, and the rear fence is the neighbor's fence.
The rear yard fence, that's right, that's the one we're moving.
Okay. I have no further questions. Ms. Novak?
No questions.
Mr. DeChico?
No questions.
Mr. Dorr?
I mean, the only thing I have actually is 2. One, if you're moving this applicant's rear fence, is that changing the setback to the, where the shed is placed?
Well, the setbacks are measured from the property line, not the fence. So even though we're moving the fence in, which has to move in and be on their property, and meet the required distance from the property line, the setback distance wouldn't change. The distance from the fence would change.
Yeah, I'm more worried about, so it still would be compliant with the current shed zoning.
Yes.
Okay, and then the only thing, I mean, the chairman mentioned that the variance is a little small, but in reality, you are increasing the lot coverage, maximum lot coverage standpoint, 29%.
Yes.
You require 20%, so that is the most significant.
That's probably the most significant request, the most significant change, yes.
That's all I have.
Ms. Lopatos?
Yeah, just to add on to what Mr. Dorr pointed out, if we were to approve the second variance that you're seeking for the lot coverage, it would likely be the last lot coverage expansion we would allow on this property. There wouldn't be any future applications coming back for putting additional construction.
That's a good idea, because otherwise we'd be going to zero lot zoning. Yes.
Well, I just want to point out.
So tight.
We do get applications from people sometimes, subsequent applications. When somebody is granted something like this for increasing the lot coverage, they have an idea down the road that maybe it would be a great idea to add another shed or add some
I see.
other outside feature. And I just want, in effect, you to understand that this is pretty much the outer limit of what we consider to be doable.
Yes,
And
understand.
this might be, again, if we approve it, it would probably be the maximum lot coverage.
Yes.
All right, nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Obviously, there's nobody here for or against the application. Does the board wish to make a determination?
Mr. Chairman, with regard to, I believe there are 6 variance applications,
Yes.
which includes the fence. I'm going to submit that all 6 applications, as submitted and reflected on the plans, be approved.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Dorr. Ms. Novak?
Aye.
Mr. DeChico?
Aye.
All right, and I vote aye, carried 5-0, it's approved. Okay.
Business session.
Yeah, we're going to take a Yeah,
So wait a minute, do I make a motion that we go into business session?
all right. Do I have a second?
I second, Mr. Chairman.
All right, second by Mr. Lapazos. DeChico?
Yep.
Ms. Novak?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, this is specifically with regard to application 24-31, which was the interpretation that we were asked to make concerning the decision made by the building inspector regarding Town Code 218, Schedule of Regulations, Attachment 15. The reason that I wanted to go into business session is because I recognize that one of the issues that came up during the public hearing was that the project that's proposed is going to involve the development of a structure that's going to be entirely within the CNR district. But the project area, the site, will, again, by preference of the applicant, not by a legal requirement, will utilize and move a lot line for this, I guess, tax lot to include, we didn't get a specific figure on how much property it is, but a portion of property that's within the R10 residential district. Now, one of the points that I made was that the application is governed by the existence of this development project within the CNR zone, not within the R10 zone. If the R10 zone was the applicable zoning district, then this would not be a permitted use under the code, and the building inspector would not have rendered the opinion, the determination that he did. But as we read his determination, it specifically makes reference to a CNR zoning district. So what I was concerned about was that the building inspector's determination, in my opinion, is correct. In a CNR district, the utilization of this property for what I believe in his determination letter, he identified it as a garden use. Can we have the building inspector's letter? Thank you. Called it office with storage? Okay. So I have determined that an office with storage is a permitted use in the CNR district. So office with storage use, again, if it's operated as a business, I think the building inspector's determination is correct. I don't think that his determination would necessarily be the same if it was an R10 district. So I don't know what the planning board's consideration of the addition to the lot of the portion that's within the R10 district. I don't know if the planning board will ultimately have a concern with that, but it would certainly perhaps change the building inspector's decision, and I think they should be aware that if that should happen, then they might need to come back before this board for a variance, which would allow for the property as it sits now, completely within the CNR district, to be the property upon which the project can be developed. If they want to use that R10 sliver in order to avoid the need for a variance, that may not be appropriate or countenanced by the planning board. But as far as the determination made by the building inspector that we've been asked to review, I find that, again, because it references a property exclusively within the CNR district, that his determination is appropriate and correct, and I would vote to deny the appeal. But I wanted to at least raise the issue with the rest of you regarding this sliver of R10.
With that said, George, I agree with you with the CNR portion of it, but based on the testimony we heard, and I'm going to leave it to the three members that are attorneys, by deeding that R10 zone as sort of kind of a protective buffer, does that impact it from a legality standpoint?
Well, that sliver still, even if you move the lot line so it's part of a tax lot that is going to be the project location, it's still within the R10
No,
zone.
no, I understand.
Yeah,
it's
it doesn't
being R10,
change.
But what I'm saying is, if within a deed protection for perpetuity of that piece of property, does that enhance it, take away from it? I mean,
I think the
want
question
some
really
clarification.
comes up, if you move that property back, does that become CNR?
No.
No.
That's my
So-
strong
that's
feeling,
my-
is that it
that's
does
my-
not change the zoning district that that sliver
Okay,
sits
that's
within.
what we want.
Now, I'm happy to hear Nick
but-
and Adrian, but that was the,
But I think that was the point, whether you agree or not, I think that's what the applicant was trying to say, is that the lot line is moving, but the zone is not changing, so just, whereas the lot previously went to the border of the CNR and R10 zone, the lot is now extending into the
No, I mean, I
R10 zone.
understand that. I have a concern about it, though.
But
that's
what
what
I'm
he's
saying
saying.
is, in my mind, how does that R10, that little sliver, even come, where does that come from? I mean, if it was with that other piece of property up on the back, I
But-
mean, was
but
that
e- but
supposed
e-
to be
but
like the
even so-
right of way to that piece of property or
But,
something?
but even so, whether or not, regardless, the determination that this type of business is allowable or not is in the CNR zone as currently constituted. If the planning board and or if the lot line changes get approved elsewhere, then that's to me that's a
It's a
separate issue.
Okay, I mean, that's all I want, clarification.
And then if they seem to be, have adjusted their building plans to not need variances, like, as they've said quite clearly, so.
Yeah, which is, but, I mean, I think the usage is not different than everything in around that area.
Right.
You make the loop around to the side, I mean, the whole safety issue and stuff, well, I think we're all very, in tune to it and agree with all that issues. It's not in front of us, I mean, that's.
No, it's not part of
I mean,
our
whether the state
deliberation.
designs, I mean, I don't want to say that I want to turn a blind eye to it, because, I'm the one that's going to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning with a car accident, to get somebody out of the car from a firefighting standpoint, so, and I'm not so convinced that there's that many accidents on that corner. I'd love to see what the police department, if it ever came to that standpoint, says. But with that being said, I mean, I agree with the building inspector's determination.
The other thing too, now that we have the Amazon project finished, you have a lot of people coming up on the train from wherever.
I know, I see them
And they
walking.
walk
I see
over
them.
to Amazon, so you gotta.
No, it's
Yeah, but again,
It doesn't
unrelated
affect-
to this
It does,
issue, but yeah.
it doesn't
It's a-
affect that side of the project, but it's an addition that has come about since the Amazon project
Yeah.
went into effect. The other thing is, as I've mentioned before, the planning board's gonna have to decide, again, about the safety issues regarding this. This is not our purview. And our
It's
purview for
planning and
tonight
town board.
is
But-
the validation of this letter.
So just sticking with that.
Just sticking with
Did
that
Adrian have
letter.
any thoughts on my concern about whether or not an application to move the lot line is approved by the planning board? And they include within this lot a sliver of R10. Does that in any way necessitate the need for another decision from the building inspector that the property would still be appropriate for use as a business under section 218 dash something?
It'd be my
218 something.
my understanding that no, because the structure itself is still sitting completely within the CNR zone, and I agree with Mr. Dewar that that sliver of R10 being deed restricted does create this buffer zone, and it was presented to us today in testimony that is, for lack of a better term, undevelopable in that way that I think he said it was like a 30% slope, and it could not be used for anything else. You couldn't just put homes on it or anything else. So it does create a buffer zone, and with the deed restriction in of itself, they can't sell it off. They can't use it to expand the
Yeah.
lot of that CNR zone.
I agree with all that. I guess I'm reflecting on a case that I worked on that involved a property that sat within a village and within a unincorporated area of a town. and the property as a whole was being developed. But there were two different zoning districts that this property was governed by.
But it was sitting right in the middle of it?
Yes. So there were
That- see,
two
that's-
distinct,
That's different in my mind.
it's different only to the extent that we have right now, a building department letter that pertains to a CNR district. And I agree with the building inspector's determination.
If it sits
I think
entirely on
it
it.
creates a problem if they add a sliver of R10 into this, because the building inspector's letter doesn't
Doesn't
address a property that's an R10. It only addresses CNR property. That was, I guess, the point. Maybe I didn't make
The
it clearly,
other-
but that was my concern. It doesn't necessarily impact approving or denying the appeal, approving the building inspector's determination here, but it does pertain to part of what was referenced during the meeting, that the developer of the property, the owner of the property, wants to grab this sliver of R10 in order to avoid the need for a variance. And I'm not sure that that doesn't create another problem that they're not anticipating, which again, the planning board will be the party,
The other
the board to
problem we
review
have,
it, but.
I found with the letter, is the fact that we have two examples. He mentions Burkey and Grotto Plumbing. They bought a Metro North. They don't bought a residential. But if we look at, you have Ortiz, you also have, it's vacant right now, but there used to be like a store there, an Indian store, that borders onto the.
See, but the issue
There's
with
a lot of them along
Just
Commerce Street.
examples within a CNR.
But exclusively within the CNR.
Exclusively
Those
within-
properties don't have a sliver of R10 stuffed into
We
them.
don't
No.
know that behind.
Well, we
No.
certainly don't know that they do.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not
So,
gonna assume
you know,
anything,
it
but.
could
Even
become an apple and
Synopsys-
an orange.
Yeah, but even when you look at the Sinapi property, again, it borders on residential.
Yeah, that whole corridor of,
Right,
Well,
everything,
I mean, the
Commerce
whole thing,
and-
you
and-
go down even behind there, you have the tool rental facility, which is right next to residential.
Oh, Deca, sure.
You know, from, and even just in that area, I mean, the architect sort of kind of downplayed it, but the building I was referencing, right on the other side, down on the curve on that part, yeah, it has an office in the front, but in the back, it's a garage warehouse just as big as in what was in there.
Yeah.
You know, from that
So,
standpoint.
to me, for my take of it, is that the record reflects far more similarities between the applicant's property and proposed use and the examples cited in the building inspector's letter than differences
Correct.
between them. And I would be comfortable denying, as George stated, the application, which is what we would have to do. If we agree with the building inspector, we would be denying.
denying the appeal.
Are we comfortable with everything?
Yeah, again, you know, we have before us, I think straightforward, we have a property located exclusively within the CNR district.
For now.
And that,
We don't know
but that's
anything
what's
else, so that's
before
why we
us.
gotta go before.
And that property has been determined to be a permitted use in the CNR district by the town building inspector, by a decision made on September
Can I
11th,
make a
2024.
motion to close business section to,
yes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. With business session,
Everybody else, aye?
yeah, everybody's in agreement.
without objection,
Okay.
so.
The question is, do we want to vote on this particular
Yeah, I'm
application?
prepared to vote on it
Yeah,
today.
I'm ready to vote.
Okay. Do we have a vote on the application for the Scott Core 2431?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, with regard to the building inspector's determination, again made with regard to the approval of the proposed use of the parcel located at section 112.9, block 1, lot 3 on the tax map of the town of Mount Pleasant, being exclusively within the CNR zoning district, permitted use as a, what's the language
It's a
there?
landscaping supply facility.
Yeah, he used language in his decision. Can I see it?
Office and storage.
For office with storage use is permitted within, under the code. I'm gonna, at this time, express my support for the building inspector's determination and for the denial of the appeal.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second that.
Second by Mr. DeChico. Ms. Novak?
I also vote to deny.
All right, Mr. Dorr?
Vote to deny, yeah.
All right, and the chairman votes the same. All right, carried 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, I move to close the meeting.
Second.
Okay. Meeting closed.